Argentina shock Wales and emerged victorious in the opening quarter-final of this weekend. Now that was a proper test match and had everything you'd expect from a Rugby World Cup quarter-final. Plenty of intensity, especially from the starting whistle, where Josh Adam lined up Emiliano Boffelli and smothered him, and that really set the tone for the game. Plenty of scrums, plenty of knock-ons, periods of massive deadlock. It took a while for Argentina to get on the scoreboard, but they did late on in the first half with a couple penalties from Emiliano Boffelli, moving the score to 10 points to 6 before the interval. And then after the interval, Argentina started to find a few more penalties, and Emiliano Boffelli was kicking the 3 points from range, 55 metres in fact from one penalty, and ultimately it was his boot that was the difference, with both teams level on 2 tries apiece. In this video I'm going to talk through some of the key points and ultimately where it went wrong for Wales and right for Argentina. Now there was a referee change which was unusual in the first half. Some bizarre things happened in this game, such as obviously the referee pulled up with his calf, Jacko Piper came off and then Carl Dixon replaced him. Potentially sort of stunned the flow of the game. It was flowing very nicely. Wales had just scored. Look, it's not an excuse at all by any means. You have to adapt to the situation that was put in front of you. And then even more bizarrely, the Welsh shirt numbers just kept peeling off. It was bizarre. I think they changed shirts at half time, but that was rather strange. In terms of actual rugby, the game had many highs and many lows, many momentum swings, and ultimately it was Argentina that rode the momentum the best, and Wales potentially struggled to capitalise off some of the massive areas of dominance they were having. Now, Argentina started off very offensively. Wales had to make 30 tackles in the opening 10 minutes, which really set the tone for how the game was going to be played. Despite that, Wales showed some really good attacking endeavour, especially in the first half, with a couple sort of breaks down the right hand side with Luis Rees-Zammit putting a couple chips in, a couple steps inside, but ultimately the Argentinian drift defence was really, really superb. The Welsh actually crossed first with Dan Biggar receiving an inside ball, I think it was from Gareth Davies, and went under the sticks. Really good start for him and the Welsh side. And after that point, you'd sort of expect Wales to kick on, but unfortunately that wasn't the case, and they sort of sat back and absorbed a lot of Argentinian pressure, which eventually resulted in 3 points. Now the game nearly spilled over before half time, and Josh Adam gives away a silly penalty for just sort of off the ball after the whistle had gone, like shoulder shove sort of type thing. I don't know how to describe it because it wasn't a shoulder charge, it wasn't malicious, it was just a bit silly, and that meant Argentina could notch another 3 points before the stroke of half time. Both kickers did miss penalties early on and sort of cancelled each other out, but ultimately Argentina did very well to stay in the fight. The Welsh side were the far the better team in the first half, but they only went in 4 points up, which in the context of a quarter-final really isn't that much, especially looking at the final score. Now, the other try scorer for Wales was Thomas Williams. Later on in the second half, a really nice snipe through the middle of the breakdown. Neither team were really gaining an upper hand through the forwards colliding into each other, so it took a little bit of deception ultimately for Thomas Williams to score. And then even later on in the game, Scalvi got over for Argentina. Some really good close range work. They were banging at the door for so long, and eventually the Welsh defence creaked, and he got over and swayed the scoreline into Argentina's favour. And then it was a late intercept try from Nicolas Sanchez, who has been part of the Argentinian setup for such a long time now, and he got his just rewards for his service to Argentinian rugby with an intercept from Sam Costello's sort of pop pass, out the back move, which he read absolutely beautifully. He'd clearly been sat on the bench and identified some of the set plays and the shapes Wales were throwing at them, and then he took his moment and ran with it. So brilliant work from Nicolas Sanchez, and ultimately that took the game out of Wales' reach. Before that, you would have thought Wales could have sort of manufactured a good attacking position, maybe got in line for a drop goal or a penalty, but ultimately that wasn't to be. In terms of what each team did well, I thought the Welsh set play moves, especially in the first half, looked really, really good. But ultimately they just couldn't finish them off. There were some good opportunities, they got a good few penalties, but the line out was another thing that just really let them down. Dan Biggar turning down the 3-point option on a few occasions to kick to touch, and ultimately the line out throw went astray. Ryan Elias coming in for Dowie Lake, maybe that was a mistake in terms of selection because the line outs just weren't the same, and they did shore up when Dowie Lake came on. So look, maybe that's a point Warren Gatland will have a few regrets over, but ultimately you never know until they step on the field. So not taking the 3 points was definitely a problem for Wales. Just keep that scoreboard ticking over. You don't need to get out to a 15-point lead. You just need to keep sort of out of range of an Argentinian try and just keep the scoreboard ticking. And ultimately, Emiliano Boffelli did that for Argentina, kicking from 55 metres out. Those are just sucker punches. They really are. You know, you don't really have to earn a 55-metre penalty in the same way you would a try. You know, 3 points is a big chunk of what a try is worth in rugby. So the ability to kick these from range and sort of stay in touch with your opponent and then strike later on in the game was just the perfect strategy for Argentina. Sort of a problem with both teams' performance was just handling errors. Look, you probably have to put that down to good defensive displays from both teams, but ultimately it was quite a scrappy game, plenty of knock-ons and accidental offsides and scrums, which sort of dented the flow. But you can never expect free-flowing rugby in international and especially World Cup quarter-final level. In terms of Argentina, as I've mentioned, they stayed in the fight so well. They did really well to sort of stay in touch with what was a really good start from Wales. And they stayed in touch and then ultimately waited till later on in the game. I'm not saying they waited on purpose, obviously. They would obviously like to have dominated throughout, but it was not until later in the game where they finally cracked the Welsh code and went over for a couple tries. I thought the Argentinians did very well in the air. Matteo Carreras, Boffelli and Malia did very well to control the airways. The Welsh were struck with some quite impactful injuries to Dan Biggar and to Liam Williams, which ultimately, when Sam Costello threw the intercept pass later on in the game, that was when Dan Biggar and Liam Williams weren't on. So potential a lack of inexperience and a lack of influential, slightly more experienced heads could have resulted in that. But it was just a brilliant piece of work from Nicolas Sanchez. And the Argentinians weren't particularly clean, but they were just clinical. That's one thing you could say. Not necessarily clinical in the Welsh 22, but just clinical in terms of the penalties they were awarded. They turned their penalties into points, which at this level is absolutely crucial. A couple big moments in the match. The clear out to Nick Tompkins, which connected with the head area, which was referred to by the TMO for Carl Dixon to have a look at. Now, look, this is very controversial because it was head contact via a shoulder, but my personal opinion is the referee got that spot on. Nick Tompkins, he fell from a reasonable height. The clearer out was low. He wrapped completely well, and he actually tackled Dan Biggar out of the ruck. So he completed everything there legally, but it was just unfortunate that sort of his trailing arm and the wrap actually caught Nick Tompkins. I don't think it was massively high impact. And look, 10 years ago, no one would even look at that via a TMO. In today's game, look, some referees, granted, would give that a penalty. But look, that could have gone either way. If you're Welsh, you're definitely going to say that's a penalty. And look, I can see that point of view because head contact. But from where I'm stood and what I thought of it with a completely neutral opinion, or if anything, I'm probably favouring and wanting Wales to win. I did think that was fair because you just don't want to see rugby fall down the route of sort of not saying milking decisions, but just decisions for completely accidental and unavoidable foul play. And then another big moment was a break from Rio Dyer in which Luis Rees-Zammit had an opportunity to go in the corner. He made the right call, he went for it. There was no opportunity to step back inside because the cover was coming over and he couldn't really come inside. And he went for the corner and was probably about 6 inches away from scoring that try. He did very well to keep his body in the air, but ultimately the ball was not placed on the line and it was just 6 inches away and touched the touchline and resulted in an opportunity for Argentina to clear their lines. But those were the big moments, and I have to say Emiliano Boffelli, after missing his early kick, was phenomenal off the kicking tee, and Nicolas Sanchez closed the game out with the final penalty and put the final nail in the coffin for Wales. Now, Wales have been absolutely exceptional in this tournament. Many would say they've overachieved with a solid victory against Fiji on the opening weekend, and then what was a completely dominant performance against Australia. So look, the Welsh can be proud of what they've done. Ultimately, they were expected to win this game, which might hurt. And they always say it's the hope that kills you. You thought Wales could probably go on to a Rugby World Cup semi-final. I thought they would go on to a Rugby World Cup semi-final. I favoured them to win this game, but Argentina, they're just a Rugby World Cup side. And I don't even know what I mean when I say that. Like, what does that even mean in a Rugby World Cup side? But they just seem to turn up in World Cups. Maybe it's the emotional energy and the togetherness of the group and doing it for their country, because obviously the World Cup's the most televised tournament. Maybe it's that, but ultimately none of that matters, and it's Argentina that roll on to the Rugby World Cup semi-final. They're going to meet incredibly stiff competition, and I don't see them get through in the semi-final, but All I'd say is soak it up, Argentinian fans. Be proud of your team, because they stuck in right to the final whistle, and they really did grind out a solid victory that will go down into the Argentinian Rugby World Cup history books. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Please do let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What did you think of some of the key moments in which determined the outcome of the game? And yeah, thank you very much for watching.